this, we'll do the usual Q&A stuff, but today I actually wanted to kind of start talking about how to double your sales in 12 months or less. And so along with the presentation, if you have any questions, please dump them into the comments, and we can get to those during the live Q&A. I may not get through them, may not get to all of them, or some of them I may just purposely wait till the live Q&A section to address those. But in the interim, I wanted to kind of get started and showing you guys how we at Blaze kind of go about, doubling the clients that we work with, their revenue within a 12-month time frame. And so with further ado, I'm going to push that right now, and we'll kind of get started. All right, and if there is any issues, if you have issues with maybe seeing certain things because of the way with my face, maybe over the words or something like that, just let me know in the comments, and we'll kind of do this. So this presentation is really going to be kind of like a very interactive one, and it's something that before we get started, if you have a minute, I'd like you to get a piece of paper and a pen, because we're going to be doodling a little bit, and I'm going to have you be drawing some stuff and really be doing some real evaluations. Have you be doing some real evaluations on your website, or not on your website, on your business, and where you're currently at with your business, and things like that. So I can give you a couple minutes. I'm noticing some more people are coming on, so just let me know when. Just give me a thumbs up, a like, something like that. And if you feel like sharing this as well, go ahead and share it. More the merrier. So so get a piece of paper and pen, and let me know when you're ready to go. And if you have any questions about anything, just drop them in the comments. Give me a like. Let's roll. What's up, Kellen? Awesome. I love seeing more and more people coming on, so this is good. When you got a piece of paper, let's roll. Kellen, a lot of this stuff is going to look a little familiar to you, but we will dive into a little more stuff that we probably haven't necessarily covered. All right. Okay, so if you got a piece of paper, you got a pen, we're going to be doodling a little bit. This will be kind of like a really interactive kind of workshop I'm doing live. And to be honest, I'm really testing this presentation and just kind of seeing how it goes. So for those that are familiar with me, that have been working with me and stuff, I'm really trying to put myself, to do, I guess, walk the walk besides talk the talk. So we can get rolling. Okay, so I'm gonna get rolling here. And so we're gonna talk about how to double your sales in 12 months or less without being overburdened or wasting money. All right. Let me make sure my tech stuff is good. All right, so before we jump into it, just kind of want to talk about the problem, okay, the bad news, so to speak. There's 3 things that we've kind of realized, especially with me becoming a digital marketer partner, and some of that knowledge that has come from them down, is that the first problem is that sales are really unpredictable, right? Sales are unpredictable because they're either driven by product launches, referrals, promotions. It's really kind of a boom or bust type of thing. The other thing is that people are really sketchy about being this guy, right? Nobody wants to be this guy, and I don't blame them. Being the pushy sales guy is something that has taken companies back from even doing marketing to begin with, right? And then the last thing here is companies like to burn cash, like to stab in the dark, try to just acquire customers at any cost. And so I've been guilty of this, especially during the last 5-6 years. I've definitely have seen a lot of this, and so this is something that we want to avoid. And providing systems and different things like that kind of help with that. So our objective today really is to help you achieve or see a better way, so to speak. And with that, we want sales to be predictable, right? We want the opposite of what I just talked about. We want sales to be predictable, so you can anticipate like down to the dollar, right? And so once that happens, that's when true scale can happen. Other thing is that if we do the marketing right, it actually builds trust. And so we want to do marketing because marketing is what enables us to make sales. And so the marketing done right will actually create trust and will build brand integrity. The other thing is that we want things to be profitable, right? We want anything we invest, we want to be able to get a return from, as much as possible. And we want to be able to utilize that cash just to grow with a greater capital efficiency. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So really, like, the goal here is to give a formula and a framework for predictable growth, and start to build a plan that usually takes us about 90 days to build, that will essentially double sales in the next 12 months or less. And so what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be covering the three aspects, right? We're going to be covering the documented journey, actionable metrics, and some of the tools and tactics, right? But with that, for those of you who don't know me, my name is EJ. I'm the founder of Blaze Digital. Been in digital marketing for quite some time. Certified partners with a few different companies, and one namely is going to be Digital Marketer. And a lot of these, pretty much all these, the frameworks and everything comes directly from them. Here's some of the clients that we've been privileged to work with, and we've implemented these systems with as well. And then these are the companies that currently use everything that we're going to be talking about as well today. So just know that what I'm going to be talking about isn't something that's fly by night thing. It's a proven stuff that it works. It just works, right? And so with further ado, let's talk about you. So with that piece of paper, hopefully you got, I want you to draw this. And I'll give you a minute or two to kind of draw that. We're going to kind of do a growth audit. This is something that we do internally, especially when we start to work with clients. This is something that it helps us to measure kind of where we're at and what actually needs help, or at least gives us a baseline for what we feel like needs help. And so you just go ahead and give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go there. I'm seeing a few more people jump on, which is great. This is kind of like a special edition webinar style. Cool. Right on, Andrew. All right, so now that we have this, I want us to kind of do a self-evaluation of where we are in our business. So on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being we are absolutely the worst in the industry that we're in, and 5 being we are the best in class, I want you to rank yourself on each of these. So we'll start with awareness, to from 1 to 5, where do you feel like you are currently? And then just kind of move to engagement. If you have questions about what any of these mean, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I can kind of give a brief explanation. The one that most people have questions about is the AHA. The AHA it centers around a stage called the Excite stage. It's really all about customer experience. And so after somebody makes a purchase, how good are we at creating excitement with those customers? And then just give me a thumbs up when you've kind of put the dots, so to speak, on where that correlates. Just give you about another minute or so. It shouldn't take too long. All right, so I'm starting to see some likes and some thumbs up, so to speak. Cool. So now we've got our dots. I want us to just connect the dots. And it should give us a really cool graphical indication on where our holes are at. And so we might find ourselves, hey, we have a lot of awareness, but we're not getting very many leads. But the rest of it's great. Some people might end up being, hey, we're great at leads and the initial conversion, right? But we're not really great at ascension. Yes, I can grab. This is something that I should have done, Rachel, is pre-drawn or drawn something. I've done that. Yeah. I'm going to draw this. If you have any questions with anything too, feel free to drop them in. I'm just going to be drawing, the example here. So something like this, right? If you can look down in this may be something of what you guys are looking like. Maybe you can't see that because it's pushing all the way through. It's awesome. You may end up looking something like this, right? So it's a really good graphical implication. And then if you was to pretend like you had fives all across the board and just put a dot or connected, just kind of pretty much draw a circle around that, it's going to make that graphical implementation, graphical thing a little bit easier to identify kind of where the holes are at. So for me, the engage stage and the convert stage may be an issue for me, right? And so these are just a great way, if you're honest with yourself, you can really look at, where your holes are at, right? Where things, easier way to see kind of where things you may need to spend some time on doing. And so that makes sense to everybody. Hopefully everybody has, yeah. Yeah, so the patterns that we kind of see really vary, but usually most case it revolves around the leads and the initial convert stage, right? Is kind of where I would say a lot of them lack. And I think a lot of them lack too on the AHA just because they don't know necessarily what that is. And when they kind of get an explanation, they realize that they may have like a good customer experience, right? But it's not a replicatable. And so that's good there. So with that said, I wanted to kind of move on to the framework. So the framework that we want to kind of dive into that we use to kind of shore up some of these is called the Growth Triad. Okay? The Growth Triad, it encompasses obviously three things. The first thing is the documented journey, right? This is our roadmap to tell us, how we're going to get from A to B. The next thing is actionable metrics. These are the things that we use to identify if we're on the right path or not. And then lastly is the tools and tactics. These are the cool things that like Blaze started solely on tools and tactics, running ads, doing SEO, email campaigns, stuff like that. Utilizing certain tools like MailChimp or Klaviyo or Zapier, those are tools that kind of help us move along, right? Gets the job done. And so these are the things that if we found ourselves kind of stuck between the two, maybe we have a documented journey and actual metrics, we would be stuck in the mud, right? There's no tools or tactics to push us forward. The next thing is that, if we find ourselves, hey, you're like, hey, I actually do have a documented journey and I have all the tools and tactics. Well, you'll be like a bull in a china shop, right? Because you're not tracking the things that knowing whether if you're on the right track. And with actionable metrics, this is where a lot of businesses lie, is the one hit wonder, to where they don't necessarily have a documented journey, right? So if they run like a really cool campaign and it's super successful, like a product launch or something like that, they don't document it. And so when they try to do it again, it will usually fail or it won't get the similar results. And it'll leave people wondering like, what happened? Well, what happened is you didn't document the process. So how are you going to replicate your successes if you don't document it? And how are you going to optimize those to make them even better if you don't document that process, right? And so those are some of the things that we're going to be kind of talking about today. To achieve that predictable growth, though, you kind of want to just be in the center. You want to be in the very middle, to where you can achieve the predictable growth, right? And that's where you achieve scale and all that kind of stuff. So we'll kind of start with the documented journey. There's a few of us here on this live currently that I've kind of gone through this with them. What we use is called the customer value journey. Okay, this is a picture of it. This is something that every business needs. It helps to shore up communication issues. It puts everybody on the same page, so to speak. A document that you can give to anybody in the company, and they'll immediately, within a few minutes, they'll know whether or not how you're going to create customers and how you're going to retain them, how you excite them, and et cetera, et cetera. So here's just a simplified version of what that looks like, right? And if you have a piece of paper and you want to draw this framework, I invite you to do so now. And then we'll kind of go through each stage and what each stage really looks like in the simplified version. It's going to be different for every business because these are based off of a customer avatar and it's based off of a core offer, right? So it's very specific to the offer and avatar. So a lot of companies, they have multiple avatars, right? If you're an apparel company, for example, and you have your website and then you have a wholesale to where, you have stores, retail stores and things like that buy things at wholesale. Those are two different avatars that you need to build a customer journey, kind of like a strategy, right? Overarching strategy on those two avatars. So I'm going to kind of go through this semi quickly, just so we can stay on track. But the first stage here is awareness, right? They see an ad, they come and find us in the Google search, stuff like that, right? It may be at a trade show. The next thing here is that prospects, they actually go to the website in the engage stage and they read a blog. They're on the live video, right? This is part of the Blaze's engage stage. Subscribe. So this is where they give you contact information and permission to follow up. So emails, phone numbers, stuff like that. The convert stage is really based off of two things. It's a small offer, so to speak. So it's either time or money. So it's, digital marketer, they offer things for like $7, for example, that gets people in the door, so to speak. So it's things to get people in the door. For us here at Blaze, it's a similar process to what I'm going through right now with the discovery session. And then the next stage is the excite stage. This is all about customer experience and how we excite our customers after the initial purchase. And then we get to the core offer. If we do a good job at the convert stage, which basically sets us up to provide that great experience, it should seamlessly lead into the core offer, which then, we have upsells and things like that to retain the customer. Once we get to the advocate stage, this makes it's a little easier up here. It's just ways, how do we get people to say nice things about us and for reviews and testimonials. And then the promote stage is how are we going to turn our existing customers into, promoters for our business. So that's what that looks like. And if you want to take a screenshot of this, or if you would like to, if you wanted to draw this down or whatever it is, so you can fill it out, this is the framework that we use, especially in Blaze. We go through this every single quarter, and we're constantly referring back to it. Make sure we're on track here. This is the central framework that we use. Actionable metrics. Okay, this is the next most important piece because, we can have a journey, but if we're not tracking each stage of the journey, how do we know if we're going to be making it to the destination we want to make it to? And so we use the Growth Scorecard. This is what it looks like. And the really cool thing about the Growth Scorecard is you have 3 metrics that track each stage of the journey, right? And then we track it week after week, right? And then in the status, this is where we can see whether or not we're hitting our marks or not, right? And if we see a lot of red in certain areas, that's a bad thing, right? So we can figure out what's going on in that stage or in those areas, and we can kind of fix it, so to speak. So, and then lastly, this is the tools and tactics part. The cool thing about, the customer journey is we have the 8 stages, right? It's based off of the stages of intimacy, actually. And then we have the Growth Scorecard. The Growth Scorecard measures each stage of the journey. So if we find holes in certain stages, well, we don't have to waste our time on stages that we don't have issues with. We can go directly to where the issues are and fix them. And we can apply tools and tactics that are going to be, to fix those areas specifically. So there's a lot of cool tools that we have in our growth toolbox, such as like the core message matrix, the bullseye traffic bracket, content funnel map, predictable sales canvas. There's a lot of these, and I know some of you on this call has actually gone through some of those workshops. And so, if you've gotten any value out of those workshops, put in the comments, on which one that you felt you got the most value out of. And then, so at this time, we want to kind of turn it over. So if you've taken a screenshot, if you've drawn it, I mean, we're kind of running out of time, but what I want you to do is I want you to start filling it out. I want you to fill out, where you're at currently on your awareness stage. Where, what are you doing to currently engage with your potential customers? I can give you a minute or so if you'd like to do that. Because really, and one thing I really want to kind of point out here is that clarity, right? Being clear on your journey, and this is actually in my next slide, right? Clarity on this whole process is absolutely critical, to growing and optimizing our business, scaling our business. And so, if you feel like this brief explanation, usually, we spend like an entire day building a customer journey, for people, when we get really in depth with it. And sometimes we have to build out multiple customer journeys, which could be across multiple days. And so it's not a fast process per se. It's a very in-depth process, but providing that clarity. Can you guys give me like a thumbs up or something if you feel like clarity in business, knowing where you're going and how you're going to get there, is important? Maybe just comment, throw a comment in there. Yeah. Yeah, hands down. Love it. So again, this is the customer journey, right? Let's kind of play let's play a game, so to speak. Kind of like a mind game, right? Not really a mind game, but let's just kind of play around for a sec. Let's say that we double one stage. Let's say we double the awareness stage, right? Just imagine, like, what would that do for your business currently right now if you had twice double the amount of people that knew about your business? In most cases, that would potentially that could double your current revenue. What if you doubled the engagement stage? So say you doubled the awareness stage, and then you went and doubled the amount of people that you're engaging with, that you're talking to. That in and of itself, for a lot of businesses, is going to, it could potentially more than double what you're currently doing in revenue. But if you went along and you doubled every single stage, right? That's an exponential growth, right? That's, it's 256x growth, which is crazy. And obviously it's ridiculous, for a business to do that, especially in that short amount of time, 12 months. But what if you just doubled one, right? Or what if you just increased each stage by 10%? I'm hoping that you guys can see that, 256x growth just by doubling each stage. You can see how that's technically, that's the potential, right? So doubling your current revenues, I'm hoping that you can see how it's very doable. And so this is why we call this, a comprehensive framework for growth. And this is how we're able to say, hey, we'll double your revenue in 12 months or less, right? Because utilizing this formula isn't, growth at this point is not just predictable, right? It like has to happen by the laws of nature, right? It just has to happen, so long as there's nothing else crazy in the world that's completely destroying everything, right? But I'm hoping you can see that. If you can see that, throw a comment in, give me a like, do something. Just want to make sure you're all with me still. And so But what we do here at Blaze Digital, and this is something that you should do in your business as well, is you shouldn't, we talk about the one bridge, right, that needs to be built, and the half-built bridges and things like that. We kind of take that a little serious here, and we do this. We go about optimizing this like one stage at a time. If we don't want to overwhelm people, we don't want to, see, we just don't want to overwhelm people. We'll just leave it at that. And so at this point, though, how's everybody feeling? Is this all making sense? I'm hoping it's doing I'm hoping I'm doing you guys a service and providing some good value here. So if I am, give me a like, give me a thumbs up in the comments. I know we have some people on YouTube, we have some people on Facebook. Feeling excited, yes. Sweet, me too. And so this is really the process, right, that we take clients through. When they become like a fractional CMO client of ours, we have a 90-day accelerator that we take people through. This exact process, right? And this is how we do it. This is what the 90-day accelerator looks like. We build those 4 documents. We use tools to optimize, and then we start putting the gas on the fire, so to speak. And so if there's anybody has any questions, or if you feel like you want more information from us, or if you have just questions in general, right, go ahead and type help me in the chat, or you can go ahead and go there and scan the QR code and schedule a discovery session. And so we'd love to kind of talk about your specific situation and see if this is something that's that would be worth your time. And so with that, I hope that you got a whole lot of value out of that. This is something that I'm pretty passionate about, and this is really something that we here at Blaze kind of take seriously, and we just love helping people, and this is the best way that we can kind of provide that service. So awesome. So that's really the end of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and hide this so that, so you can get just me. But with that said, with those of you still on, what do you think? Was that valuable? It's my first question to you before we start the Q&A, right? Getting a few more people jumping back on. I love it, love it. If you're jumping on now and just kind of getting in, go to the front. You can have a whole presentation we went through in just about 30 minutes. It was awesome. Very valuable. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I agree. Especially a lot of agencies. And really that process really is like it's a process we use internally, something that we kind of teach clients. So it's good. Awesome. So this is kind of like the start of the Q&A, so to speak. Yes, Brett, you will. You will. And the presentation might look a little familiar to you, but yeah, hopefully it kind of drums some things back up and get you thinking a little bit. So questions, if you have questions about anything marketing wise, if you watch the presentation, if you have questions about that, drop them in the comments. We'll get them answered. If you have just general questions, like What'd you do last weekend? Those are cool too. So let's go ahead and drop your questions. I appreciate everybody who was with me for that whole past 30 minutes or so. It was awesome. Questions. There's been a lot of cool stuff. I'll kind of go into a little bit some of the things we've been testing here at Blaze with some clients is running TikTok ads, and it's proven to be awesome. I think I talked a little bit about that last week, and it's kind of interesting. We started turning some TikTok ads, this last week for clients, and revenues went up. It was kind of it was almost just like flipping a switch. Put on TikTok ads, and revenues started going up. Kind of a cool little formula there. Pretty simple. With the customer journey, is there one step that is more important to focus on than the others? Yes, potentially, depending on where the business is at currently. When we start taking people through the 9-day accelerator, we actually build out the full customer journey, and we start, obviously the metric side, we start tracking over, for the next month or so to kind of really see where things are at. Usually the phase 2 is all focused around, the first stages that we actually go in and optimize, I'll just say, is the convert stage. So, and the excite stage. I would say the excite stage is probably the most important stage out of all of them, but you have to have conversions to be able to set that up. So you got to make sure to put the cart before the horse, so to speak. And the convert stage is usually the first one that we optimize. And we do that. The reason why we do that is because, we don't do it that way. It's kind of like, potentially pouring water into a holy bucket, so to speak. That's the thing Ryan Geist always says. But it makes sense, right? Hopefully it makes sense. Makes sense to me. So when looking at actionable metrics, I'm wondering what we should expect or shoot for in the cost to acquire a new customer. Totally depends on your offer. So, Brett, I will get to that. So, what should we expect when we shoot for the cost to acquire a new customer? I look at the lifetime value of what your customers are. And the cost would be, let's say, I don't know if the best way to explain this is. It's solely based on like how much, really the lifetime value of the customer is. You can acquire a customer that's less than the lifetime value of that. It becomes profitable, right? Depending on your margins and stuff like that. So if you have a product that's, or let's say the lifetime value of the customer is like $1,000, right? Or $500. I would say that less than that, potentially like half of that, would be kind of like the initial target, and then the less and less you can get, the more optimized you get. Obviously, the less it's going to cost you to acquire the customer. The thing is to remember, when you're looking at competition, you're looking at the industry and all that kind of stuff. Something that Dan Kennedy has said, and I fully believe this, is those who can spend the most to acquire a new customer wins, period. So to be able to afford to spend more than your competitors, right, to acquire a new customer is the goal. So that means you need to provide more value in your offers than your competitors, right? So if you have an apparel company, for example, what's some other things you can do to add value to what you're offering? If you're selling shirts, hats, whatever, some of our clients, they have a membership, that they do where there's a lot of, value in that because they have discounts and industry discounts and like things like that, and then they get a free shirt of the month, so to speak. And so there's a lot of things like that you can add and just keep adding more and more value so that the lifetime value of your customers go up and up and up. So, and Brett says, what is the most important thing that a small business or startup should have in order before beginning the 90-day accelerator? So the most important thing to have in order is your product and your ability to something that you can offer people, right? So if you have an apparel company, for example, making sure that you have shirts that you can sell, for example. That's probably the most important thing, is to have an offer, have something that you can offer out, and something that ideally something that you can have margin on as well. So we work with a few different apparel companies, and one of the things, they just sell shirts, hats, things like that. They're really niched in the first place, and so they kind of dig into that niche, which is kind of an important thing too. And so having somewhat of a business plan, I would say, if you have some revenue coming in, that's obviously like a big thing, because the 90-day accelerator is set up to double where you're currently at in revenue. So you're currently at $50,000 a year. The 90-day accelerator should at least double that, right? So you're looking at $100,000, $150,000, however you do your math that way. That's what that would look like. If you were doing $1 million, that 90-day accelerator potentially will take you from 1 to 2. That's where we really push to. And with one of our clients, that's something that we're really looking at for this next year, because we're going to be coming up on that $1 million mark. And so we're going to be looking at taking them from 1 million to 2 million this in 2022. And so having some cash flow is obviously something that's great, and having something that, if you have a cash flow coming in and you're selling stuff, you obviously have an offer and you have all those things kind of in place. And so that's what I would say. But having a customer journey to begin with is really what's going to set you apart, and is really going to make it very clear on the flow of how you're going to acquire customers to begin with. So and really help optimize that. So what exactly is the customer lifetime value, and how do you calculate that? So you look at the people that have come back and purchased the most, right? How much have they spent with you? That's really, how you would go about calculating that and getting that number. So if you have customers, some customers are going to come and spend money with you once, right? Other customers are going to come and spend with you 10 times or more, right? And so the total lifetime value, if you have people that are continuing to buy and buy and buy and buy again, you just look at, how much those people are spending, and that's potentially, where everybody could be spending, right? And some people, they take like an average between the most people spending versus like somewhere towards the bottom. So if somebody spends like $1,000 with you versus other people, they spend like $100 with you, so to speak, and that's over like a 12-month period, then you can average that out, right? Sort of thing. Some people like to do that. So there's obviously great resources. There's a few different ways, just depending on how you like to do your math, so to speak. So up front, we are looking at spending a lot and not seeing the full results until we hit customer's lifetime value. I would say that when you're initially starting, that's where I would say that your cost per acquisition, you can go up to that point. So if I was spending ads on generating leads so I can get sales for Blaze, for example, that current lifetime value of the customer, I would say, okay, we can spend up to, I'll just say, for example, like $1,000 to acquire a customer, because I know the lifetime value of that customer is going to be much larger. And so that's where I would say that we need to kind of roll with there, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like our maximum cost per acquisition. So you can spend a lot more. And if you're testing an offer, you're testing stuff just initially, you could set the budget, so to speak, at that lifetime value and just see what happens. If you acquire one customer at that lifetime value, then at least you'll be breaking even, right? Over the grand scheme of things. I know initially, so here at Blaze, we talk a lot about getting you a 3-to-1 return, and you go generating that 300% return within 90 days, so to speak. And so that's something that that can happen, and it's just all about testing and being able to set up a retargeting and kind of getting that stuff going. So when you're running ads, yes, the lifetime value of the customer is important. It is very important, right? To be able to know what that number is, because that's going to affect like how much money you can spend to acquire a customer. But once you start optimizing that process and getting it rolling, you can obviously scale the amount of money that you're spending, so long as you know what the lifetime value of the customer is, and you are optimizing, and that keeps going down. So, and that's kind of how we go about generating a 300% return, is because we set up that initially. And then once we get enough people in the audiences with the pixels, and we get enough people to the website, we can set up retargeting, which is the follow-up sequence that comes up, because the money is in the follow-up, right? If you're not following up via email, via retargeting ads and all that kind of stuff, there's really no point in running ads, I think, because you're probably going to, more likely you're going to be losing a lot more money than you think. So, so initially, with your campaigns, you should be looking at that, right? You should be setting up a cold traffic campaign and pushing that out. And then you'd be setting up retargeting campaigns, or at least an email sequence that is going to be able to follow up. So as people get through, maybe they submit their email address, but they don't make a purchase, you want to follow up with them, right? You want to be able to try to get them to convert. And so there's a lot more than just running ads that kind of goes into those kind of campaigns and figuring that stuff out. Let's see. If you're a new company or new to marketing, you should just start running ads to push sales, run awareness, both the same. So yeah, so this is kind of like what I was, So yeah. We usually set up like a traffic type campaign initially to push traffic. So the campaign initially is just to get people to the website. And then the landing page, we're hoping that that's set up well enough to be able to convert people. But then once we get enough people, so like Facebook and some of these other platforms, I like to get at least 2,500 people to the website to get into the pixel to be able to start retargeting them. But when we start driving traffic, one of the things that we want to try to do is to get their contact information, right? So that we can follow up with them, not just through retargeting or whatever, but directly through email or text messaging or something like that. So something to think about, especially when you're running like an apparel type company. I think it's even more important to try to get that information, because usually apparel doesn't have like the best margin. I would say it has margin for sure, but you can have a lot more margin if you're not having to spend a whole ton on ads, that's going to eat that up initially anyways. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're actually getting a lot more people on this time around, so this is like pretty exciting. Love it. And how much time do we got? So we got just a few more minutes, and then I will bounce. But if you have any other questions, hopefully those questions have been answered. And it makes sense. Sometimes when I explain stuff, it doesn't make any sense to anybody but me. And so if there needs to be clarification on certain things, just let me know. I'm going to see if I can find like a cool calculator I can put in the comments. that I think is going to be good. I'm going to put in the comments here. Let's see if I can find a better one. This one's probably going to be a lot better here. There's tons of resources out there that kind of help to push that out. But in the comments, definitely check that out. Go to there, and it'll kind of explain in a little more detail. The average, the lifetime value is the average value of the sale times the number of transactions times the retention time period. So it definitely goes into a little more detail than what I explained, for sure. So hopefully it's a little more clear. Yes. So I can put in the link as well if you wanted to set up an appointment with me. If you go to our website too, blazedigitalsolutions.com, click on free strategy session, that's going to take you to a little questionnaire, and then you'll be able to see the calendar after that. Here's the link to that. We have the little questionnaire just so we can get a little more information about the business and kind of like where you're having issues with, so that we can address them more efficiently on the call. So why we go about doing that. And really, like, we really want to work with people who are looking to double their revenue, at least. And so, if you're like, I don't want to ever double my revenue, I want to stay where I'm at, then you don't need to schedule a call. Is there an average cost to retain a customer versus average cost to acquire a customer? Yes, and generally that cost to retain a customer is going to be a lot smaller. It's going to be a lot less expensive. In some cases, the cost of that is virtually zero to retain the customer, because it's all about customer experience. And so, you shouldn't have to really spend a whole lot of money to be able to retain them. You have a good system. And obviously systems fail, things like that too. So there's no such thing as like 100% retention for any business. But acquiring a customer is definitely going to cost you a lot more. Awesome. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. We had a few more people that on this time than we have in the previous. So that means things are getting out there a little bit better. We're kind of doing our job, so to speak. So I want to thank everybody for coming on. Yeah, so I'm going to end this, but if you do have any questions, I got the link in the chat below for the to schedule an appointment. And if you're watching this and it's not live, feel free to comment and tag us so that we can answer your questions as well. Or feel free to get a session, an appointment scheduled. So appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll see you next week.